Ah.
You would find it in the forest, typically at night,
Ooh.
as that is when it hunts, producing a loud, shrill cry, unlike anything else you'd hear in the forest. The creature is, of course, an owlbear.
Oh, I love his
Oh, an
voice.
owlbear.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, or second of all, welcome to the show. It's Challenger's. We talk about a monster. We give it a rating out of 20. It's based on how we feel about it, and I draw it at the same time. I'm Theo.
I'm Neil, social media mogul.
I'm Sam, world famous Twitch affiliated streamer.
This is probably one of like the top 10 most famous D&D monsters, right?
I'm not sure how well it ranks, but I know that lots of people know about it. So
Yeah. And they are literally they're just a bear with an owl's head, aren't they? So I don't need to ask too
they
many
are.
questions about
It's
that.
it is meant to be feathered, like
All over.
it kind of is, but
Oh,
like
golly.
it says that, but but it's more like it has feathers coming off the top, and then like a few off its forearms maybe. But like obviously I think the artist for the book maybe didn't want to do that as well. So it kind of molds
Sure,
into kind of.
yeah.
It's meant to be thick feathers and stuff, so you could say it's like
Yeah, I get you. And they sort of have like wings, but have like paws at the end,
Yeah,
don't they? They're kind of cool.
It's like the evolutions you get when a bird stops knowing how to fly.
Yeah. I think Owlbear's one of like the monsters that has like at least from what I've seen, has some of the most fan art. Like a lot of people have their own takes on owlbears. I don't really have a specific one in mind, annoyingly, but I'll give it my best shot.
I thought it was interesting because, yeah, as you said, it's one that typically, maybe not like the everyman would know, but like it seems to be once you get into entry level D&D, it's kind of.
I think it's been referenced in a lot of stuff. I think for one thing, like I don't know if it's actually a deliberate reference, but Avatar: Last Airbender. If you remember in that, all the animals are like mixes in the same way. So it's like the platypus bear and everything's a weird mix, and like again owlbear is just two mundane animals smashed together. Now it's fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about the owlbear that just catches the imagination, though. Like, having run an owlbear for like 5 different groups of like different players now. Every time you have an owlbear to new players or even old ones, they just love it. They love an owlbear.
Yeah, it's an owlbear.
It's that mixture of like, because obviously owls are considered like a cunning hunter with the raw strength of a bear. Not that bears are dumb, but I think I think that idea of like, kind of like super nature, like combining, I think maybe is quite like a strong one for people.
They're really fantasy and they're cute and cool.
It doesn't really need much describing either. Once you say owlbear, people have like a pretty clear idea. Even if they have different ideas, it doesn't necessarily matter. Does it have anything particularly exciting in its like stats or anything that we should talk about?
Obviously like they're really strong. So they're only for only a challenge rating 3 creature, they have 20 strength and 17 con. So they're like I think like the way that they're like they kind of nestle into it is like they are obviously well known for being like really ferocious and like deadly, because at the level you're finding them, they could cause a party a lot of problems. Like attack wise, they just have multi attack, so they'll attack you with their beak and then they'll claw you a bit as well. But that's not like shmup. That's not like anything weak. Like the beak is like a D10 plus 5, the claws 2D8 plus 5 on the standard variant. Obviously, you can change all that stuff. Obviously, it's not intelligent really. Like it's got 3 intelligence, obviously, and owl's not intelligent, but it does have 12 wisdom. So
okay, so it's a tough thing, but I guess like in terms of like the regular like D&D animals, this is better than any like real life animal.
It's in
terms of like strength.
Type wise, it's in the same list as like hippogriffs and things. It's actually monstrosity.
It's
Oh right, because it's I guess because it's a mix. Yeah, it's
made by it's like I think in the story doesn't it say that they may have been made by something, but nobody's really sure.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, like their origin
cool.
Again, it can be up. Basically means it can be up to the DM and how you want it to be. They are kind of created though, like I said, like a wizard might have like experimented on crossing them, but there may be like some elves who've lived for hundreds of years. You said they've known them for thousands. They've known them to exist for thousands of years. Some might say they come from like the Feywild as well. Like why not? Like
they're a very fey creature.
And I can really imagine like if you had like a forest a magic forest in that maybe low level. You could imagine this being in the same place as maybe things like a manticore or any other sort of you could have a chimera forest of other mashed up animals, and maybe you got some ancient wizardy tower in the middle of it where all these things have originated from. That could be.
I mean, fighting and like reading through, it's a very powerful enemy, and comparing it to like challenge rating like 1, like the bear. It is like It is a bit more powerful than the bear, but it's 1,000 times more interesting and fantasy to in a game of D&D fight an owlbear than go into the woods and have a bear attack you.
Yes,
because this is from like first edition as well, isn't it? I really it's an ancient one, and I guess back then Gary was like, well, I guess I could say there's a bear or there's a pack of wolves, or I could say something interesting, and he came.
I think it's definitely like 100% on that. If your party is camping somewhere and you want there to be like an event at night where one of them's on watch, the owlbear is a much better, much more more fantasy, more interesting choice than a few wolves come over or a bear.
Yeah, or even just like bandits.
Exactly, yes.
Like,
okay, it's
cool.
different.
Man with sword, yawn. I think as well something I don't think we've really talked about. But we haven't done like any sort of like wild animals in the same way. This is something that like if you fight it and it drops below half health, it'll probably run away.
Yeah, it would probably run. Yeah,
it's like we've done a lot of like supernatural or evil things, all this sort of thing. But this is something that like if you're not fighting it in its home, like its lair, it'll run away when it gets like half health, and I think could be quite interesting for a lot of the wildlife.
Could also.
Stuff.
Again, you could run into it and it not attack you guys, because that's often what predators do in the wild. They stare at their prey and watch them, and they attack them when they show weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone gets separated, you could be tracked by an owlbear, and then like you have to make a lot of checks to make sure everyone sticks together. Maybe someone falls down a landslide or whatever, and then suddenly the owlbear is with them. It's like, uh-oh. Everyone's going to get together.
At level 1 or 2,
regroup.
Fighting an owlbear is nearly impossible. In Lost Mines of Phandelver, the intro adventure, there is an owlbear in one of the early dungeons, and it's like locked away, like it's one of the things. It's like a pet being kept, and it's like it's a really tough deal to fight it at that level. And so it's having your low level adventurers going through the woods and the owlbear not attacking them unless they do something silly or they know it's owlbear country and they see their tracks. And Sam, they hear their noise. What noise does an owlbear make, Sam? It is hoorah. It's hoorah. Hoorah.
Hoorah.
So a hoot into a rah. Yeah, no, it's quite. It has a distinctive screech, you could say.
This is definitely a fun one. Then it's just it's a nice bit of levity, real good for like early stuff like that. And I can imagine like this being something that like maybe the town guards every now and again have to chase off the owlbear that keeps like getting too close to the town.
Bounty board.
Yeah. But again, because it's like wild animals, it depends on like you could like. Depending on the party and how you play the game, but this is something that you could like feel bad about, like going and slaughtering them just because it's like, it's a wild animal, but not necessarily the case. It all depends on how the party is. Maybe it's got maybe there's owlbear cubs and you got to rescue one, and then it'll be nice and it won't attack anymore because it's just looking for its child. Who knows?
Obviously, there is a bit in the Monster Manual that goes on about how they can be savage companions. So like there's totally like reason for. An intelligent creature could kind of, over time and with luck and like food, you could get Owlbear to recognize you as a master. So people might keep it as like a guard or like certain like band. I don't know, I'm imagining like maybe not a goblin, a bit too weak, but like some kind of bandit lord having it as his mount or something like that.
Yeah, maybe like he's got a druid or something on the side who keeps it.
I don't know if it's my World of Warcraft speaking. The idea of a druid who can change into an owlbear. I mean, just from the drawing, what you're doing right now, its face looks very expressive. So,
well, this one looks it's got an owl face. I will address what I'm drawing, by the way. Bears bears are one of those few creatures that people reckon understand beauty, right?
Oh,
Do you know this? Have you heard this?
I did not know this.
Oh,
No.
I might say it wrong then. But you know how bears are often like sitting around, doing nothing. No one can figure out why, but they're usually doing it on like cliff faces in front of beautiful vistas and stuff.
Oh,
so there are people who are more qualified to think it than I am, who theorize that bears just appreciate beautiful things. An interesting little factoid there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It might be not true.
That is in my headcanon now.
But I've heard this to be true, and it's pretty great. And so bears just sit around.
And you give it 12 wisdom,
Yeah.
Why not? It's gonna appreciate it more.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just sitting out there. It's just watching the sunset, which will be somewhere over here.
I like the idea that Norman was sitting there watching it, and the owlbear just walks over and sits next to him.
Yeah, and again, because wild animals, even dangerous ones, sometimes won't. They're not always dangerous.
That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
I'm not saying you should go and hug a tiger, but there are people who do that, and it's insane.
I mean, if it's not hungry, like it doesn't, and you're not posing a threat, there's that is kind of the.
So you could have quite a touching moment with an owlbear.
You look at the Serengeti, like around the watering hole, the lions are like 30 foot away from the zebras, but they're just sitting in the shade.
So not every encounter in D&D has to be combat, although combat is part of the game. Don't avoid it, but
it's pretty fun. You
could have, in a similar vein to the flail snail, you could have some bounty hunters are out here killing owlbears, and maybe your party, maybe you got a druid and a ranger, and you're a bunch of nature boys. Woo, and you're like, hey, we don't like these. They've killed the owlbear dad, and now they're going to kill its mum, and then all these little baby up. What are you going to do? And then you got to fight the bad bounty hunting party who just want to destroy nature. I don't know. You got a bunch of elves in your party, something lame like that.
They could totally exist in like that. It does, like, there's another thing in the Savage Companion section. It says like a frontier outpost, like settlement.
Sure.
That if they could tame them, they might even race them and things like that.
Oh, fun.
If you had like a kind of like very much like barbarian camp kind of thing, they might have a couple that they kind of use use for entertainment basically. So like you could totally have that. You could totally have them incorporated into a society if you wanted to.
Dancing owlbear.
Oh, you maybe want to free it. It doesn't want to be dancing anymore.
Got one in town.
Yeah. Just performing circus rolls up.
But yeah, they are. Before we sound too happy, they are just an animal.
I think we've in the time we've been talking, we've pretty much covered what they are and what they do. So they it's weird because they're like, as we said, that they're very useful for. You can if you have a forest, you can have one. So and they're good to have in that forest.
Every D&D campaign, short of like I am on the sea or I am in a desert.
If
it's like
forever.
Or it's just a city campaign, or whatever, or you're in the Underdark. Like you should probably think about having one. However, after that, that's it. Like again, it's like a one. No, maybe not. But you can have a couple in there. But
at a higher level, you just mentioned you're going through the forest. You pass like owlbear like dens, and they give you a wide berth because you are clearly like 4 to 5 very strong, armored people. So they're just going to.
It does say it would attack people. It doesn't fear enemies stronger than it. No. In its frosty thing, it would think nothing of challenging a foe with superior strength.
Oh, rip.
I would understand that with like maybe like it's that whole.
But numbers though. Yeah. Probably.
It would probably like fight.
It would jump on a level 10 like wizard.
Yeah.
Regardless of if that person could do very bad things to it.
Well, it's probably more getting at the fact that maybe it would attack a creature much larger than it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like as the owner of a bird, I know that birds don't give a crap about that kind of thing. Like he'll like my bird will be like, I'll be going to go grab him, and he'll be like, "You want to go, mate?"
You want to go?
And he is literally smaller than my hand, but he thinks he can take me.
Yeah.
Maybe you could like come across one like mid fight, like against a chimera or something.
Yeah, I think that is probably their most useful like narrative thing is establishing a fantasy thing, which I think is exactly why they exist in the first place. But also like again because of the whole their origin being mysterious and potentially sort of meddling and magical from a person's point of view, you could potentially set up like some part of a forest or like a dungeon somewhere in there.
Yeah, I using owlbears, I think domesticating them is a fun thing, but I think it's one of those tickets that you pull maybe if people are familiar with the creature. Like,
or if someone really wants to domesticate one, then you're like, okay.
Oh, if somebody wants to do that, yeah, that's fair. But if like you're in a campaign with some veterans and you have the dancing owlbear in the circus kind of thing, that's fine.
Sure, yeah.
But if it's a regular D&D game or maybe some newer players, less experienced, having the owlbears be a known thing in the woods or something that you encounter in the nearby woods to an area and only in that area, but they're known to live there.
Yeah,
it makes the world feel very much more real while still being crazy because it's a bear with the face of an owl.
Yeah.
And it's like it just captures the imagination so quickly of this just, it's so alien and looks cool. It looks cool. Like, that's the thing about it. It's like one of those weird Photoshop pictures.
It kind of looks like Norman's got a hot date though.
It does a little bit.
It's great. I'm liking it.
No, he's already got a friend. The Tarrasque.
He's got so many friends.
Tarrasque is somewhere down here.
Tarrasque will get jealous.
Well, hang on. This castle in the background, this huge fence castle is obviously smoking ruin.
No.
Tarrasque is on his way.
Is the Tarrasque a massive tsundere? It doesn't like...
Yeah, he doesn't like...
Tsunderask.
He doesn't want to see any...
Tsunderask.
He's a...
Shall we put some numbers on this?
Yeah, I'd be kind of... I'm not... We've said a lot of nice things about it, but I think it does come down to the fact that, like, you know, it's just the owlbear.
Physically describing how an owlbear peers at you, and then you get that moment of the players going like, "Oh my god, that could be an owlbear," if they even know. Like, you know, when because we're all players in a D&D campaign at the moment together, and when you get those moments of even realizing what very simple monsters are in the environment,
the reveal is a surprise in itself and fun.
You know, like when we were figuring out something was an ettercap.
Oh, yeah.
We were excited to figure that out, and that's an ettercap.
That's true.
Like, the moment of recognition is really good if the DM does build it a little.
That's fair. I can't argue against that. I'm not thinking above 10. I would be willing to give this a 10, though.
I was thinking 10.
I would, personally, as somebody who loves owlbears, I would go a little higher, but I think 10 is very reasonable. It doesn't deserve doesn't deserve more than that.
Yeah, it's
in
fine.
Many ways.
But it's not interesting
really
in terms
cool.
of like what it does or anything. Yeah, it's a bear. It's a bear that looks like an owl.
Ultimately, the number doesn't matter too much.
No, you can't just tell people that. That's
sorry. It's really important. Please pay attention to the scoreboard so we can put at the end of the show.
That's the hero's journey that the audience has to go through, is realizing
you're cutting this, right? You're cutting this.
Yeah, it's like Dragon Ball. When
the score was the friends you made along the way.
Power level doesn't matter was meant to be the point.
But it
and the real
always
fans
did.
know. The real fans know that power level doesn't matter. Even if it does, sort of.
Apart from everyone who ever wins always has a higher power level.
It's now.
Oh.
I like how between the sketch and this, the shading on the owlbear has made it much more sinister.
Yes.
Than it was originally.
I mean, that's good though. I mean, they are quite evil looking. Like, well, not evil. They're quite angry. So
owls have horrifying eyes, like in real life.
But they can be quite cute though.
They can be cute, but if it was an owl the size of a bear,
no, I would be scared.
I'd be scared.
I absolutely adore it. It's given me a lot of Tales of Elethrian vibes.
Oh, yeah,
like
I can kind of see that. Yeah, I can see that because it's high altitude.
It's high altitude, vista, and then also unexpected friends.
Yeah, buddies. At least, hopefully, there's a castle, a very large castle.
It is huge.
If we're talking about like scale, that's sort of maybe like a mile tall, if not more than that.
That's definitely got to be when Norman staked that vampire.
Maybe.
In my current Sunday campaign, I have my wizard has a baby owlbear as her familiar.
Nice.
Little thing that rolls around and is a bundle of fluff that she drew herself.
Sure, yeah.
And when they went to the Feywild, I did the matron of all owlbears as something that was like just in the Feywild.
Yeah.
And I found a great piece of art that somebody drew of like an armoured, kind of elven-y armoured owlbear.
Yeah.
And it was just chilling in a cave with a bunch of other owlbears. And
that's fair.
yeah, and they went and stole its treasure. You know, classic adventure stuff.
Of course.
But it was all about not waking it up and stuff, and it was a nice.
That's fun.
It was a nice
again, I think that's that kind of demonstrates what we were talking about how it's a wild animal, but it's an interesting wild animal. But again, it's one of those things where it's not like flail snail where you're guilted into not taking it by its mechanics. You're just like, you might just like, it's just an animal. I'm not gonna like go all out and try and hunt it to like the ends of the earth to kill it. It's just an owlbear. And you know, you need that in environments to make them feel real.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best animals to say. Like, like you put
the one that isn't just in the appendix at the back, just like dog.
You put this alongside like hippogriff.
It's definitely yeah.
I looked up the origin of the owlbear. It's fun. Back in the good old days, Gary Gygax was looking for miniatures. The owlbear was a Japanese, like, imported kaiju toy he bought. It was like,
wow.
This will do. And the same with bullets and rust monsters are just like off-brand kaiju monster toys that he bought in like Poundland equivalents essentially. And he just like made them up into monsters.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And it's just like, it just really shows the game like has not changed.
No.
Like ever, it's always been like that. Like, oh, this is a cool thing. I'm gonna put it in somehow. Like every time, like anyone's like, anytime you sit down, it's like I'm gonna play D&D in real life. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be great. And then like, oh man, miniatures. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do for all these minis I need? And I think that's something that like I kind of miss about the way we used to play back in the good old days of like using the same like 5 crappy the Kinder Surprise toys.
Everything was a skeleton.
Everything was a skeleton. Yeah.
Much like Norman and the Owlbear, if you enjoyed the view, give us a like.
Oh, nice.
Nice one.
That is nice.
I really like that one.
That was good.
We can always resort to just saying them the
no,
commands.
Absolutely not. Calls to action that aren't made into amazing humour. That's just pandering. That's just begging, and I will never beg. Type a who rah in the comment. Give us your best owlbear like onomatopoeia for like the hoot rah in the comment. That'll be fun. Do Very that. Good. Or don't. Or just write something that you think about the video.
I'm gonna do that.
If you manage to owlbear this video all the way through, then why not share it to a friend?
Oh, nice.
10 out of 10.
But we still want to say subscribe now.
Just subscribe. Just subscribe, alright?
Just subscribe. Just do it.
Just
click the button.